Hey, welcome back everybody to another awesome episode of Push the Point, where I have got none other than Andrew Rayner. You might have heard about Thistle Tavern, right? The Scottish single seller. Well, this is the guy, right? This is the guy that owns it. Do you own all of it, or is it part own? Is it all you?
No, it's a 50-50. It's 50-50. Stuart Robb owns the other half. I've seen him at some of the events vending when I've been busy playing.
Yes. So Andrew Rayner from Thistle Tavern has taken his Riptide Lurker of the Deep deck, which I will say that him and his team, mostly his team, has been working on this deck, and I'll let Andrew do all the shout outs for that. He took it, and what was your record? Because you came fourth in the UK Nats with this.
I went 5-1 in the Swiss, and then won my quarterfinal, lost semifinals.
Yeah.
6-2 overall.
So I just wanted to make that as the premise as well, because draft is obviously a big thing that happens in UK Nats, and sometimes some people look at some CC heroes and they go, "Oh look, see," and you know, draft is a thing. But 5-1 with Riptide. That is so cool. I've never done a Riptide deck tech. I've always liked this character. I've always liked the look of it, but never could gel with it. So first I've got to ask, Riptide as a hero, why did you pick it? What was the appeal?
There wasn't a specific appeal. The team had been working on it so much from Battle Hardened Valencia, where the guys, Gus top 8'd the Battle Hardened, and then Gus and Tim both top 8'd the PTI on the Sunday, with Tim winning the whole thing, with kind of a previous iteration of the Riptide deck where they'd kind of been talking about it for a long time, and we were all just kind of brushing it off and going, "Nah, guys, you're doing something's going on, but
yeah.
you're not. This isn't the thing."
Yeah.
And then they started putting results in, and then it came to post Valencia. Obviously, Mistvale comes out, and they put in a lot of effort,
Yeah,
and a lot of reps, and then the end of it was they said we have a 60% matchup into Zen.
right.
And I was like, okay, I think Zen's going to be the most represented deck. Sign me up.
Yeah, I was going to say, we've got Azalea, right? Azalea is the queen of Rangers. It was Lexi. Azalea was never a bad shout, but Lexi was always better. Why Riptide over Azalea?
So Riptide's kind of doing some more interesting things. So basically attacking on two fronts. Being a damage deck, so presenting lots of chain links and kind of trying to go a little bit wide with the same disruption that Azalea presents. Obviously, the on hits that Azalea presents are really powerful, and that's one of the things she does really well. But when we can do that 2 or 3 chain links wide and make the most of things like Codex of Frailty, Rain Razors, and Prismatic Leyline, we can kind of maximize those cards and get as much value as possible out of these cards. So we turn from every card being like worth 3 into being worth more than 3. So if we get 4 value out of a Rain Razors, obviously we're up on that. Same with Prismatic Leyline, we can get 6 value out of that card. So that's kind of what we're trying to do. It's essentially a numbers deck at the end of the day with incredible disruption. Obviously, Remorseless, Battering Bolt are really good effects into this format as well.
Wow. Okay, so with the hero ability, whenever you play a card from hand, you may put a card from hand face down into your arsenal, and whenever you play whenever a trap you control triggers, deal 1 damage to the attacking hero. How much of his hero ability is like really important here?
The first part's far more important for us. So we're looking to leverage the reload effect of his ability. So ideally we want to kind of have a lot of turns end up being a go again attack into play a buff and play another attack.
Yeah.
So trying to present 2 sets of 7s, ideally is what we want to be doing with some kind of disruption. So being able to use that reload halfway through the turn to get extra value out of that. So even if you're just playing a buff, loading an arrow and sending for 7, you've presented 2 card 7 without really needing to do anything else. And your arrows tend to have some other kind of on hits, or your buffs have on hits.
Okay, and then the second part of his text about traps, yeah.
There's some matchups where it is relevant. Things like Enigma, it can be really powerful. The traps in our sideboard can basically trigger off of all of their attacks. So that can be really useful to kind of trade for their ward. It's really nice when one of your traps just trades straight from Manifestations of Mirror Guide.
Yeah.
Which is really nice. You can get a lot of value out of 1 card out of that. But in the main deck and into most matchups, we don't have that many traps. We have a couple in the main deck, but generally they are resource cards that have a gotcha kind of feel to it. But generally speaking, it's the first part that we're trying to leverage.
It has this Reckless Swing. Yeah, if you don't know, it's the brute defense reaction. If you play it, discard a card. If it's a 6 or more, deal 2 damage. And it tends to be some weird ways to win the game. Is that another? Does it come up? Is this a way they win the game?
It was a way that I won one of the games at the weekend. I had 5 traps in my deck, and I managed to play both Collapsing and Buzzsaw to kill my Zen opponent when they played an Art of War. So they were on 2 life and just played Trap, and
That was
away
it.
we go.
GG. Brilliant. All right, so that's Riptide. Let's go through some of your equipment slots. We'll start off with the first one here. Bullseye Bracers. It's a bit of a... It's the staple, really. For most of the time we've seen Azalea, mostly. Not so much Lexi. No, actually, it was pretty busted in Lexi. Yeah, it was very busted in Lexi. So, and you've put it into Riptide deck. How come?
We're leveraging it in the same way that Lexi would, where we want to maximize Bolton shots. So giving go again to the Bolton shot, or just being able to load a 1-card hand with an arrow to be able to kind of send 5 damage. But yeah, just it's an extender. It allows our hands to go wider when we need to. So yeah, being able to start a turn, bullseye, Bolton shot, attack. It's already pressuring them because they don't want to give you that reload. They don't know if the Bolton shot reload text actually matters. Obviously, with our Riptide effect, a lot of the time it doesn't matter because we can play a buff, reload from Riptide's effect and do that. But sometimes it does matter. So a lot of the time we're using that to do that, or we can just be using that to 2-card or 1-card just load the arrow and send it.
I've seen that there's a new piece of equipment. This is the first time I've sort of done this in a deck tech before, but I think it's there's some new equipment coming out for the Azalea Armory deck that feels kind of similar to what Bullseye Bracer's doing, but it blocks for 1. Do you feel like that's something that you would have over this, or do you think Bullseye Bracer's is still doing something a bit more?
The +1 to give the Bolton shots go again is pretty huge in this deck.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely a home for that if you in maybe like a Murky Water Riptide list where you can give it Dominate off of the reload as well with the new arrow, because it gets the aim counter, it gives it Dominate, and then that's a deeply powerful effect. But we don't really have the ability to leverage aim counters.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Okay.
There is another card in that Armory deck that is very interesting for us.
Well, which one's that?
Because so the yellow buff.
Oh, yes.
So the +3 costs 1, blocks for 3. We're playing Deadeye in this list, and all it is a 3-block yellow +3. That's all it does.
But that one's actually doing a lot more.
This one actually has a lot of relevant text. Being able to turn an arrow face up, that then allows us to have our second slot again with New Horizons. That's massive. Absolutely huge with the way this game can play out.
Well, let's go on to New Horizons, right? Now you mentioned it. So while you have a face-up card in your arsenal, you may have an additional arsenal zone. Right, so what is New Horizons doing that really is really important in this deck?
New Horizons allows us to have 6-card hands.
Yes.
So a lot of the time, we want to maximize our 6-card hands. So a lot of the time, we want to go first into pretty much every matchup. And we want to sculpt our hands. We want to be able to load an arrow using Death Dealer and arsenal a buff.
Yeah.
So we've got two excellent cards ready to go. And then we get a little bit of tempo by blocking with 2 cards from hand. And then we've still got a 4-card hand.
Yeah.
So we can steal the tempo straight back from someone if they're presenting good damage into you. If they don't, you just get to send a full 6-card hand at them.
That's when you mention it.
It's a simple way of putting it, but you can play a really nice tempo game where I've sculpted my hand, I fixed what was potentially wrong with it.
Yeah.
Blocked a little bit of damage, and then I get to full send everything.
Okay, yeah. So is New Horizons very crucial for this Riptide deck?
Yes, it's basically what it's been built around, is the idea that we want to make the most of having extra cards in our arsenal and find more of these cards to be able to play with.
Yep.
A lot of the time that our hands can get a little bit tough some of the time, where you can kind of have brick hands where you're, I guess, kind of Runeblade hands,
where
you can have all arrows or all buffs. It just helps us sculpt those a little bit more by having access to more cards.
Yeah, that's really cool. I will just glaze over Snapdragon Scalers. It seems like it fits perfectly into this list. A lot of your arrows cost 1 or 0, so giving it a go again is pretty cool, right? So I was going to say, there's those new boots that has an aim counter. This is again. Is it just because?
Yeah, we don't have don't have enough aim counter stuff. I think you need a sand scarab in there somewhere.
Yeah, fair enough, fair enough. Now, here is a really interesting chess piece. Now, every time I see a Riptide deck, you do expect to see the what's it called? I forgot.
Trench. It's in our sideboard.
Oh, you have got the trench. Okay, but Findale spraying Tunic, of course it is. Tunic's in every deck I've ever done ever.
Yes.
But this is in your main board, right? So, what's going on? Why Tunic?
Tunic, Death Dealer, free card.
Yeah.
You don't have to do it very often. You don't have to do it very often in a game to have got value out of it. So, as I say, a lot of our deck is designed around trying to maximize go again and trying to attack multiple times.
Yeah.
Being able to use Tunic to get a full free card off of Death Dealer is such massive value. And even into the matchups like Zen and Dash, where you're only playing maybe 3, maybe 6 turns, you're maybe getting to do that twice. Maybe not getting to do it twice, but if you get that once, you're still getting that free card off of that. And we've all been talking about we want to have 6-card hands. We want to maximize the number of cards we're using. And Tunic just enables that.
Yeah.
Whereas Trench doesn't.
Does Trench though help you when you're talking about sculpting? Because I feel like someone's going to ask this question. It's somewhere in the comments, right? I feel your question, right? Now, when you're putting in cards in Arsenal, Trench does a good job of just being able to go, you know what? Like, I don't the card face up with New Horizon. I can just move that card from the that's face down away. So if it's no good, do you know what I mean? It has that filtering feel to it. Is that not something that is important, or is it down to you've got to kind of lay your Arsenal down properly? Like,
yeah, it's not something you just throw any old card in your arsenal. You do want to, depending on kind of where you're at with what you know is left in your deck, you want to sculpt it. You either want to put buffs there so you can play buff, load Death Dealer, load Arrow, or load an arrow and just be ready to block and send an arrow. Like you can, this deck's very good at blocking. The other thing that's probably better at than Azalea is it has a lot of 3 blocks, and we're quite happy spending 2 or 3 cards blocking to then send an arrow with an on hit.
Yeah, okay.
But that is why we're playing Driftwood Quiver in that place, is because that gives us that one use free get out of jail free card when you do end up with a brick arsenal.
Yeah, okay. I was going to say this is I like to see like a Riptide. When I say I like to see a Riptide card, you've got the Trench. That feels like a Riptide card. Like every card I've seen here, I'm like, I don't know, man. Does this feel like Riptide? And it's really cool to see Driftwood Quiver. That's like, I didn't expect to see that. And I guess it's that you don't have a... Is it because you just don't have a better quiver? It's just like, it's fine.
It's actually really critical over the other quivers that the guys had tried. This deck's very difficult to fatigue. So you don't really need Abyssal Depths. We don't really need to load an extra arrow from the top of our deck. But there are a lot of times where you might have had to put a trap in your arsenal and then someone didn't attack you, or you might have a non-go again arrow in your hand and your hand's actually perfect if you had a free arsenal slot. So you could just clear it away, Death Dealer, and go on your way. And it just gives you that flexibility. It just sits there. It won't. It seems just doesn't really do anything, but it just enables you to kind of be more aggressive with your arsenal, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because
you always have that get out of jail free card.
I like that. It's if you're not using it, things are going well, and you've always know that
exactly.
I've got one free scuff turn.
Yeah.
That's
got one free turn of, oh no, this is not going well.
Yeah,
Get it gone. Let's try again.
Yeah. And then Death Dealer, one of the best bows in Ranger.
Yes.
Like one of the best bows. If obviously Lexi's bow, that was the best bow.
Yes.
But I can see why you want to put this in. Every time you load an arrow, you draw a card and it has to go again. It's pretty good, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly. It's just extra cards. We want to be playing extra cards. Some of our cards are cost 1, so we need to pitch a resource card anyway, so it replaces itself, which is great. And as I say, off of Tunic, it's just free cards.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I will just scroll on down. Is that? Yeah, I was going to say Dreadball, man. I was going to ask for the Dreadball. I've seen lots of Riptide lists with the Dreadball, but we'll go for the through the sideboard list afterwards. Let's kick it off with the main stuff in the deck. Right. I'm going to go through the arrows. I think that's the best thing to start with as a Ranger deck. Let's start with the arrows. We'll start off with Battering Bolt. You've got 3 copies of that. This is in your main board. What is this going in for? I have a feeling you're going to say Zen.
I'm going to say Zen.
Yeah.
Basically, all of the new heroes, it's really good into. Obviously, all of these heroes are playing chi. They're playing non-blocking cards, and we like to pressure them. The way that we want to play into Zen is we want to pressure both their boots and their hat. We want to force them to use those on a turn where they don't want to.
Yes.
And we want to make it awkward for them to use those pieces of equipment that obviously allow them to set up like a 7-card hand.
Yeah.
Battering Bolt obviously pressures their hand a lot. They don't actually have that many 3 blocks overall. And if you're playing a buff into Battering Bolt, you're usually going to threaten their chi. And certainly in a short game, stealing their 1 chi they have is actually really important. I think I played 3 Zens in the Swiss. I think in each of them I managed to throw a Battering Bolt at someone, and they had to just transcend and then just pitch to Zen just to hide one, just so they had one in their deck. So I forced them to do something they don't want to do just because the Adam's Zen.
That's really cool. And then seeing that as well into Enigma with the, although probably not so majorly effective with the wards because,
6 is a big number.
6 is a big number. 6 is a big number. And it's a popper as well. So it's really, most of the time you just seen it as it's a popper. It blocks 3.
Yep.
But now I love seeing it.
In this deck, we actually want to send it.
The text is really good. That's really
text
cool.
Is really good. We're a little bit more resource heavy in this build than some of the other iterations we had, and we do just often quite actually want to send a Battering Bolt for 7 or 9. Like it's a very good arrow. Like
absolutely. And then you got your 9 copies of Bolt and Shot. Bolt and Shot, man. Bolt and Shot is just like such a staple card in Ranger these days. If its base is higher than it, if it's coming in higher than its base value, it has to go again. If it hits reload, you've got all 9 copies in. This feels like the glue of the deck. Is that fair?
Yes, I think in previous iterations, so they got the list that the guys ran in Valencia. They didn't play the blue ones.
Right.
Now we're playing the blue ones because of Prismatic Leyline, where we like having blue arrows because our Leyline buffs them. Gives us more value there, and gives us more go again arrows.
Okay, we'll move on to we'll talk about Leyline in a minute. I think you've given it. I think you've really given it the actual full mention of it, but we'll get to that later. 2 copies of Drill Shot, real good card. 0 for 4 if it hits. Put a -1 counter on what? Only 2 copies. Okay.
Yeah, so it's the one that has the. You really want the first one, but then the second one doesn't really do as much. So yeah, we needed to cut one of the kind of 0 for 4 arrows, and this was the one I cut. I think one of the other guys cut an Endless Arrow, one of the other guys cut a Falcon Wing. It depended on how we felt like we wanted to play things. I wanted more go again arrows, which is why I kept the Falcon Wing. The other guys wanted the Drill Shot because they wanted to be able to pressure the equipment. But yeah, I think there's basically a flex slot there where you can basically choose your 8th arrow of the 0 cost between Drill Shot, Endless, and Falcon Wing. They're all 2 slightly different things, but in that kind of same kind of ilk. They're just a good value arrow.
Yeah, that's fair. We'll just run through this. Endless Arrow, again, 0 for 4. If this hits, put it into your hand. Really strong. Falcon Wing, 0 for 3. Has go again. I think Falcon Wing has that real same sort of vibe as Bolt and Shot. Like, I think that really does actually glue a lot of your flow, like these 6-card, 2 attack tempo hands really well. Is that a fair comment?
We just want to be making sure that like it's probably one of the best Arsenal cards in the dark, because starting off a turn with the Falcon Wing is really strong, certainly into things like Prism, where you can Arsenal that and then you can play that straight away and not have to worry about playing buffs into an Arclight Sentinel. You're threatening their board before they get an opportunity to do that because it's the first thing you're doing.
Yeah, it's like a checker, isn't it? It's like, just let's have a look. I'm not going to do anything. I've lost nothing.
Figure out what you're going to do. Are you going to block me or are you not going to block me? Like,
yeah. Cool. Right, so Heat Seeker. Now, this card, I feel like this is one of the most powerful arrows that you've got in this list. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, Heat Seeker is fantastic. It's one that just allows us to turn on the New Horizon so much more. And yeah, it's one that basically everyone has to fully respect. Like I can't remember the last time a Heat Seeker hit, to be honest, and that's kind of the respect of that, where no one wants to give you a free card.
No.
Especially if you're like Heat Seeker with a premeditate. I don't really want to give someone 2 free cards.
No, yeah, that's So when a heat seeker goes, it's basically you saying, this is not going to hit, but give me a hand. And it feels like as well,
Exactly.
is it one of those things where you go like, I'm going to attack. It's like Brute. You know, sometimes where KO does these attacks where he goes, okay, I'm going to send in like, I don't know, a Wild Ride for 6. And then you go, it's just damage, I'll take it. And then you go, okay, I follow it up with the on hit. And you go, oh, okay, here's my hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, and is
Exactly.
that what this deck is sort of trying to do? You just took damage and you gave me a hand.
Yeah, exactly. Like we're gonna try and present these things. So following up your second arrow with like a Heat Seeker, Remorseless, or Sleep Darts from the sideboard, or the Battering Bolt. It's something where we presented damage, and then we're forcing the decks that don't want to block to actually respect the arrow that we're throwing at them.
Yeah, no.
Because most of the time they don't want to be blocking; they just want to full send everything at you. And if you're making them even put one card in the way, then they're not doing the full thing they want to be doing.
Yes, no, that's fair. And then, like, we'll just throw Remorseless. It has that same sort of vibe as Heat Seeker as well. 3 copies of that makes absolute total sense. And then, I think the Searing Shot, that's meant to tie into your 0 for 4s. Just 0 for...
Yeah, Searing Shot's definitely the best one, just because most of the time it's a 0 for 5, because again, people aren't blocking it, so 0 for 5 is a very, very good rating.
It is very good. That is very good. All right, let's. I think that's all your arrows in the main board.
Shots as well.
Oh, where is that?
Can't forget about the Riptide specialization in Intoxicating Shot.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Where is that? Is that in your sideboard? Oh, your blue one. Oh, God, yeah. There it is. Okay. Zox, there it is. 0 for 4. Is it a 0 for 4? That's blue.
It's a 0 for 4 that's blue.
Yes. Now we're cooking.
We're cooking.
Is the on hit? What is that like? Is it good giving them stuff?
It's usually one that we're tying with on hit buffs that we're trying to force them to full block anyway. In the first cycle it's a resource card unless it's the last arrow we have. That's why we're only playing 2. But it's the extra arrows to enable the ley line when we get to discuss the ley line in a minute. Yeah. It's just extra 0 for 4s, but then with the ley line becomes 0 for 7s.
All right, that's cool. I'm really happy this card actually sort of made its way in. Kind of sad that the other Murky Water didn't make its way in, but again, I guess the tooth that it's not as it's not doing as much as what the Baron Bolt's doing.
For a different build.
Different build, sure. All right, let's talk buffs. We got the obvious Lace with Blood Rot. Crazy card. It's just literally 0 for
damage.
Loads of damage. 0 for 5. Go for it. Seek and Destroy. This card's stupid, right?
Yes.
So
this was one where we were playing the Seek and Destroy. Tim was actually playing Lace with Inertias as well. So he was playing 2 Lace with Inertias because he just wanted more of that effect. I think between the 4 of us that played this deck, I think we were 3 cards different across the deck. I think Gus played a Mischievous Meep. Tim played some Lace with Inertias, and I think Declan played... I think he was closer to mine. But yeah, there was a couple of extra cards there that they had access to. But yeah, Seek and Destroy is such a powerful effect. So many people trying to set up 5-6 card hands.
Yeah.
Let's shut it down. Let's not do
that. I know. Every time I see a Seek and Destroy, I'm just like, well, I guess you got to sort of look at your hand every time and just be like, I'll just take... If I take this on the chin, you go, okay, you're going to send a 5 card like thing back at me, going to go aggro. But if you want to go, but I want to keep this for next... No. Seek and Destroy is like, no, you're not keeping nothing. Really, really good. So Deadeye, we talked about Deadeye. You talked about the other card. So I can see that Deadeye is going to be swapped over to that new cards when that comes out. But you're saying it's just your it's a 1 for 3, but it blocks with 3.
It's a 3-block buff that's yellow and costs 1. So it's a resource card that allows us to pay for our 1-cost arrows off a Death Dealer because we need some amount of yellows in our deck to allow us to do that. Sometimes it is the buff that we need. But more importantly, it's a 3-block, so when we have to block CNC, obviously CNC, with us having 2 Arsenal slots, is probably more impactful into us than into many other decks. So having the density of 3 blocks to allow us to kind of cover that is really important, and Deadeye is the perfect card for allowing us to do that, while still having flexibility when we need to play it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That is awesome. Premeditate. Obviously, this card is like crazy good. On here, it makes a Ponder token,
Yep.
and I think in your main board, I believe that's it. We are gonna talk about Prismatic Leyline, but that in terms of the buff effects for that is Ranger, that's there. Codex of Frailty, or just yeah, your Ranger. You play Codex of Frailty. This card is insane.
Absolutely.
It's the most
So
broken card ever.
the one thing to add with Codex of Frailty that's really strong in this deck is kind of going back to the Lexi days. You're playing New Horizon.
Yes.
You can
Yeah.
put something in face up. You can load. So you could play a buff. You can Codex. You can play like a Bolton shot, send it their face, and then follow up with the other arrow that was in your first slot. So you can still, off a Codex turn, you can use the second Arsenal slot to your advantage and have something a little bit more powerful as well.
All right, let's go. Prismatic Leyline. Right, tell me. Sell the
Prismatic
source.
Leyline.
Sell the source.
So it has kind of two functions. Again, similar to Deadeye, 3 blocks. So in its defensive mode, we get to cover C and C.
Yeah.
In the aggressive modes, we have yellows in our deck. Obviously, it's just Bolton shot, but we have yellows, we have reds, we have blues. So at best value, we do, and it does happen quite a lot, we do get the 6 value out of it. When you're pitch stacking into the matchups where you need to do that, you're quite comfortably kind of doing that. So you can, you'll have yellow, red Bolton shots in your graveyard. You have your blues, you'll have intoxicating shots later in the game, and you can set it up so that you're kind of making sure the prismatic gets you 6 value. So similar to a Rain Razor with 3 arrows, so you can kind of set it up to be able to do that. But even in the middle game where you're going, loading Intoxicating Shot, Prismatic Leyline into like a Bolton Shot, so Bolton Shot for 5 into Intoxicating Shot for 7, and that's your 3 cards.
Wow. Okay. Is this card? Is it good?
We think it's very strong. It's been one that we've tried the deck with it, tried the deck without it, and there just isn't at the moment a better card than doing what we need to do. We need 3 blocks, we need buffs, and the high point of this card is so much higher than the other cards we tried that it's definitely worth the inclusion.
Yeah, even if you just manage to just go, right, here's the blue and here's the yellow, or here's the blue and here's the red, that's still good, right?
If I'm getting more than 4 value out of a card, then I'm happy.
Yeah.
That's the baseline of everything I'm trying to achieve in this deck, is every single card should be trying to get me more than 4 value out of it.
Yeah.
And Prismatic Leyline does that a lot, even if, I think there was one game where I played a Prismatic Leyline just to buff a Battering Bolt to be a breakpoint.
Yeah.
So I just played it to make the Battering Bolt 7 because I knew, because they had no equipment left, that it takes the 3rd card.
Yeah.
So that gives me the 3rd card worth of value.
Yes.
So even in that very small situation, it still was worth a full card. But yeah, being the resource card, we need a certain number of resource cards, and the resource cards being that impactful in a second cycle when we play the matchups where we need that is very strong.
That's awesome. And how many copies of this have you got left on Thistle Tavern?
Oh, not very many. They keep disappearing.
There you go. And then Rain Razors, obviously. Rain Razors, instant +2, perfect for all your Bolton shots. Absolutely.
Yeah, we do a very good Lexi impression when we're playing Rain Razors.
Yeah, it feels like it, definitely. And then you've got 2 traps. Now, these are probably two of your best traps. You got Buzzsaw Trap, which is oh god, it genuinely feels broken at times when someone's just coming in with a, I don't know, just some massive like KO coming in.
Dominated Azalea Arrow.
Yes, that's that. No.
Well, Declan said that he played into Bolton at the weekend.
Oh.
They went Beacon for 5, 1 card in Soul, give it go again. Then he buzzsawed.
Oh.
And it was it was like, yes, okay, that's about as much value you're ever getting out of a buzzsaw trap.
Oh my days. And then I think this is the best trap. The Collapsing Trap.
It is.
It is
and
bonkers.
That is the only card that would have possibly had a chance of winning me the semi-final. The way that Anton drew with his the Max V 30 damage turn. Collapsing Trap, obviously, such a unique card that some people will just try and play around it because it exists. It's very, very difficult to. Obviously, there's only one, but when we find it, it can just completely change a game. Which I think these two cards are reason enough to play Riptide over other Rangers. Obviously, they are incredibly powerful effects, and they're completely game-changing effects as well if you time them right.
Yeah, but only one copy though. Awkward. Is
Yeah,
it
they're
because
legendary.
they show up when you don't want them to show up, and when you want them to show up, they don't show up?
We're only allowed to play one. If I could play more, I would.
Oh yeah, obviously. If you had 3 copies of this, I'd be, oh, jeez, that'd be mad. Okay, I think. Oh, an honourable E-Strike mention. Of course, it's E-Strike.
E-Strike mention. E-Strike's good numbers card. Very flexible. Being able to use E-Strike to go again, load an arrow off a Riptide is good value. Or just being 2-card 7 is just going back to the numbers game.
Yeah. It is. Honestly, I think in every deck that I see, maybe not every single one, but it's like a good 80 to 90%. I'm like, yeah, I'm not surprised seeing E-Strike in here. It feels like it just ties into a lot of things that you want to do, or you just block with it, and most of the time you probably just go, you know what? Yeah, here's a 5, go again. That leads into this. It's so good. It's just too good.
E-Strike is probably one of the better flex slots here because you don't have to worry about it going into your arsenal when you're attacking. Obviously, with arrows, you need to find a way to get them in, and sometimes your brick hand don't let you do that. So E-Strike just lets you kind of unlock those kind of turns, even when you have a brick hand.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. I mean, you said, yeah, you can just E-Strike, put a card to the bottom, loads an arrow, gives it go again.
Yeah.
All right, sweet. That is really cool. Right, let's
all you need to do sometimes.
That's all you need to do. Let's talk infantry. So, Murkmire Grapnel, a card that never really saw any play, and then Enigma came out. So,
yeah.
Is this the Enigma card?
It's the Enigma card. It's the Prism card.
The Prism card as well, yeah.
We want to be able to get through all of the Spectrals and Angels as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's one of these cards that when we bring it in, it's usually just getting added on. So the way that I've got this set up is 57 in the main, so we'll add usually Murkmire's, Sigil, and Sleep Darts, Boulders, or Tar Pits. Obviously, some things will tweak, but
yeah,
usually one set of the 3 cards.
Yeah, so yeah, it's you're only putting in 3 cards. You're never taking any cards out.
We'll swap a couple of cards occasionally, depending if there's something that's particularly bad. But generally, we'll just put cards in over the top.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, Murkmire's really good into those matchups where anything where there's any prevention. But yeah, the Illusionists, it's necessary.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Are you a tight 60 card deck? Or
ideally, yes.
Ideally.
So with the way that we like to play this is that we are trying to find our specific cards as quickly as possible. So we don't have hats that let us find our key cards.
Yeah.
So we need to do it the hard way, which again is part of the good thing of Death Dealer, is that it's helping us dig to find these kind of key cards as quickly as possible. So if it's a Battering Bolt matchup, then that's what we're looking for. If it's a Remorseless matchup, or if we're sideboarding into Sleep Dart matchup, we just want to find those cards as quickly as possible.
Yeah, that's fair. 1 copy of Sigil of Solace. 1 copy. Did you watch like the Pro Tour? You watched the Pro Tour and just got inspired.
I just need to rip it.
Just rip this 1 card at the top. Yeah. Okay.
It's just a flex slot. It's one where when we want to bring in the extra card, or if there's a card that's really bad in a matchup and we just want to put something else in, it allows us to do that. Obviously, with the Riptide trigger, it gives us a reload. So it can be really flexible in that regard. It's also one of the cards we bring into Kano, just because Kano's not a particularly good matchup. So we don't usually have the resources where you can kind of play Oasis anyway. So Sigil just kind of gives us a little bit more into that matchup. It's still not a very good one, but
yeah, I like it actually. If you actually had a 0 cost arrow in this, you go, oh, all right, play this game for your health, load an arrow, shoot. That's like 2 card. That's 2 card 7. That's
2 card 7 still, yeah.
That's good. That's good numbers. Sleep Dart, 2 copies. Who are these going into? Is it the heroes you don't like? The Zen. Zen. Anyone that you don't like their hero text? Is that fair?
Yeah, it's usually one where Zen was the premium one. Prism's another one that the hero ability is really prevalent. So if we can kind of keep hitting them and stop allowing them to do that, so it means that we don't have to worry about having a turn where we let a Herald hit. because we've hit the Sleep Dart, they're not going to transform, so it doesn't impact us quite as much. But yeah, it's the on hit is really relevant. We're limited with what arrows we can use that are going to stop our opponents doing things, and Sleep Dart was one of the slots that we'd decided on quite late in the process, actually. It was probably the last card that got put into the deck when we'd had discussions for Nationals, was to add Sleep Darts. I think we played between us, we played 1 and 3, depending on where our other slots were. But yeah, I settled on 2. I didn't think I'd ever really want a third. We still have Codex if we want to kind of play more.
I was gonna ask that question. It doesn't, like, if it's such a card for Zen that you want to find, wouldn't you want to have 3 copies of to find it? Or
Battering Bolt's more impactful. It's just we kind of want, if I could play 5 Battering Bolts in that matchup, I would.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
So.
That's fair. And then you got 3 copies of Boulder Trap and 3 copies of Tar Pit Trap. So let's start with Boulder Trap. What's this coming in for?
Boulder Trap is generally just for things where we're trying to get a little bit more value out of the trap. I don't think I end up sideboarding this in to anyone at the weekend.
Right. Okay. So is this a card you're going to review?
I think it's one that I just don't think I played the matchups where the guys probably put it in for. It's good into Enigma, which I didn't play against.
Yeah.
Both of these traps are really good into Enigma. Just being able to ping and trade with the Spectral or the piece that's attacking you.
Yeah.
While stopping the Tunic or the Phantasmal Footsteps kind of interacting if that's what they're playing. But yeah, it's still a very impactful trap. But I think I just didn't have the matchup spread for that this weekend.
So so far, all I'm seeing is that it's coming into Enigma. Is it dealing? Is it who else?
Enigma. It's coming into KO. Coming into Levia. Basically anything that has any kind of buffs where we can turn it into a 4-value card. As long as we're getting that ping, we're getting that extra value out of it. It's good into Victor. They have a fridge, and they're now playing things with mites. So
yeah, that's fair. And then Tar Pit Trap. This seems like, oh yeah, Katsu. Katsu hates this card. Well, what's this coming in for?
Prism.
Prism. Yes.
Give me into Prism. Let's stop these Heddle sitting.
Yes.
Yeah. Generally, yeah. I've loved playing Tar Pit when I've been playing Azalea last few months. Tar Pit's been huge into Azalea, into Prism, just to stop. You want to full cover the first Herald with the Tar Pit, and then means the next one doesn't do anything either. So you can basically shut down their entire turn. You don't care if the Herald hits. It won't go into Soul. They don't do anything. So
that's
Tar Pit's such an impactful card into that matchup because it's a 4-value card anyway, and then actually stopping and shutting down what they're trying to do is fantastic. That
is really cool. All right, we'll end this off on the equipment. Dreadbore, what is this coming in for?
This is the card that I think each of the other guys cut. It's only for basically Dori. Dori's the only deck that we were planning on bringing it in for.
Right.
And there weren't any fatigue Doris
anywhere
near the room. So it's definitely one that would be on the chopping block now, unless kind of we move back to that, or if there's kind of control Enigma decks.
What would you replace it with?
Even the control Enigma. I think it was just one where I think the other guys end up cutting Dreadbore and Draw because they weren't things that they end up using. I end up just keeping them there because I didn't want the other flex slots. But it could be an extra Sleep Dart, it could be extra buffs. So you have access to more of those in some of the matchups.
Yeah, that's fair. Spellfray of Tiara, that's Kano card.
Kano, yeah, just Kano.
Yeah, it feels like, man, losing that New Horizon feels rough, but I guess having New Horizon is just, I don't know.
Yeah, so before Kindle, pre Mistveil, we were arguing between the hat and we wanted Spellfray.
Yeah.
For Kano, and I'd kind of settled on the legs because I wanted to have the double arsenal slot.
Yeah.
But now Kano is just too quick and too explosive that we just need to have access to that just to try and slow them down a little bit.
Is it just not a great matchup?
It's not a great matchup. We need to get lucky in that matchup, so we need to either hit with like a Sleep Dart or Remorseless and have it do quite a lot. But yeah, it's not a great matchup.
Stonewall Gauntlet. Wow. All right, the screen.
Stonewall Gauntlet.
Seems like a Zen card.
It does seem like a Zen card. So we found into Zen with this one that it was like Scowling Fleshbag,
Yeah.
that they just have to play in such a different way. Even if I don't block with it, they have to play like I would block with it.
Yes.
So we're just it sitting there makes them play differently and play slower, which is what I want them to do. I just want them to give me that little bit more time where they're not trying to full send everything, and that gives me enough breathing room.
Yeah. 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 That's fair. That's fair.
We've also talked about Stonewall into some of the other matchups like Azalea, just because it will block 2 on the 1 arrow. I think there was potentially some other matchups as well, but they weren't things that I needed it for this weekend. But
yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. And then the Trench of the Sunken Treasure. The Trench. What's this coming in for?
The Trench. This is coming in for Nu and Kano.
Nu and Kano. Okay, so
we
Kano,
want to
yeah,
protect our arsenal against Nu.
Oh, yeah.
So it's purely using that first line of text where we just want to hide. If we're going to get hit by a Leave No Witness or a CNC, we just don't want to get fatigued by losing those cards. We want to hide them and save them as long as we can.
Yeah, okay.
So use that as much as we can just to prevent the Nu from kind of taking too much control. But Nu's certainly one where, with the way that the Nu decks were from Nationals, I know the guys had a lot of struggle into that, and I think that's one to look to improve it into Nu going forward. That was one that we tested a lot into Nu early on. Then a lot of the team decided that they didn't want to play into Nu anymore, and then when
they adapted.
They adapted, and yeah, it's it wasn't a particularly good matchup by the end of it.
Oh, okay.
One where we would need to evolve that a little bit more.
I think that's I know this is Riptide deck tech, but I think that's the thing that I think a lot of people are doing with Nu, that they're sort of going, you know what, this is an assassin. She is going to find out what is hot, and it's only gonna get stronger. So heads up on that one. But that's that. The maybes, I see a Ravenous Rebel.
Yes. So these were cards that we'd actually end up cutting. These were the last few cuts from the deck. So the Ravenous Rebels, the last decision point we'd made was around the Dead Eyes or the Ravenous Rebels. So the Ravenous Rebel obviously allows us to be slightly more aggressive and allows us to attack for 4, reload is the idea. But because of the way that we've got our deck built now, we're a little bit more yellow heavy than in previous iteration. We were a bit more red line, so it was coming in for 3 or for 2 a lot more, and that was it was becoming not worth the full card.
Yeah, with the ley lines deck as well, you're trying to put in ley lines in because you want to have this multicolored like approach to it, so you'd be able to push that, and then that really isn't what you want from Ravenous Rebel. So that makes total sense. And then the Spike Pit Trap that got booted. I can see why, but explain why. What was the cut?
There's just not very many heroes playing reactions. It's basically just Nu. There's warriors don't really seem to exist at the moment. So yeah, it would have just been into Nu, and we don't think it actually makes that much of a difference into Nu. Obviously, the other traps are far more impactful than Spike Pit into a Nu. But if Dory or Kasai become more prevalent again, then certainly Spike Pit's obviously a fantastic option for anyone that's trying to do those kind of things. But yeah, we didn't feel like we needed it for the meta we expected this weekend.
No, that's awesome, and that's the deck. That's Andrew. I mean, that's an awesome run. You got all the way to the semi-finals of the UK Nationals. I'll leave it to you now just to do your shout outs for the guys who are testing it, and then we'll big up obviously Thistle Tavern, which you saw, by the way, at the very start of this video. Thistle Tavern. But give your shout outs for the guys.
So yeah, just want to thank the guys from the Scottish team there. So Declan, Gus, and Tim, they've been the kind of main people pushing and testing through this list. I know that between them, they've probably had about 500 games of testing for this deck since Mistvale came out, which is ridiculous numbers really between the three of them. And I think they also said that Dan Winning had put in a lot of hours as the opposition for the Riptide, and he was playing a lot of matchups into Zen. So he was the one that we were kind of beating up as the Zen player.
He was the punch
Yeah,
bag.
a lot of times he was the punch bag, and he was the one that was basically saying, "You should try this, guys. This would feel worse for me." A lot of the time, so he was kind of coming from the other side and saying, "This not doesn't feel that bad, guys. Try this." So there's a lot of time he was doing that to help. So.
That's very handy. That is very handy. Like, because a lot of the time you just get this positive bias about what's going well, and then the guys, and then you're trying to win the testing game, and that's when you're losing the actual thing. But when the other person's going, "What's worse? This is not what I want to see." That's really handy. That's really cool. And then Thistle Tavern, man. I tell this all the time on the podcast, everyone. Right, but Andrew, lay it down. What's new? What's coming for Thistle Tavern?
Our physical store is opening this weekend.
Yay!
In Aberdeen. We finally got there. So yeah, if you're ever up in the Aberdeen area, you can obviously come and check us out. We'll be running Flesh and Blood 3 times a week between CC Draft and Blitz. And we'll have monthly winner boxes, as well as hopefully, eventually, we'll have some Pro Quests.
Oh, I can't wait. Honestly, can't wait. And yeah, thank you so much for taking the time as well to break down this Riptide deck. That I know that you just took it, but you flew with it. So thank you very much. See you later, everyone.